Ladies and gentlemen, online viewing is about to begin.
So yeah, I says to the guy, I says, what? Oh, yeah, I'm ready. Let's go. We're on? We're on now? Oh. Hello friends, welcome back to the show. So glad to see you all once again. And if you're new here, thank you for stopping by. I think that you're gonna like what this show is all about, where we go back and look at cartoons that we grew up on in our childhood. Obviously, we grew up in childhood. You get what I'm saying. Right now, we're working our way talking about the series Batman Beyond. So if you were a fan of that when you were a kid or a new fan now, well, then stay tuned. Hit the subscribe button. Go and click the like button while you're at it, because today we're talking about the last episode of the second season, Ace in the Hole, which originally aired the day before my 18th birthday, August 19th, 2000.
Ace is a survivor. He'll be all right.
Well, here we are. We made it to the end of the second season. And what an episode to go out on. And I like that we finally get to focus on Ace the Bat-Hound, which again, we don't directly call him that in this show, but that's certainly who he is. And he's a character that's been part of the stories and interjected and has been in almost all of the episodes in one way or another. And finally gets to shine and get his own episode. And we get to get a little bit of a backstory into his episode, which is all very fun and very good. But where is this episode going to rank in my list of favorite episodes? You have to stay tuned and find out. But first, we're going to do the 60-second Mad Stand Bomb countdown to the episode. I'm going to give you a complete rundown of the episode in 60 seconds or less, or that bomb's going to... You get the idea. Here we go. Terry is taking Ace for a walk while Bruce is going into his chiropractic appointment or something. And then Ace takes off chasing this guy, and then they can't find him. Oh, where's he at? And then we go kind of do this little flashback of where Ace was, where he came from, and he was a dog bred for fighting. And then and then Bruce found him when he was laying flowers for his parents. And then we come back to the future, and he goes, oh boy, I really missed my dog. I want to find him again. And then they do this matching thing, and they figure out, that's the guy that Ace saw, and they go, oh, that's a dog breeder that for dog fights. And so Batman goes to kind of look into that and finds all this chemicals to induce growth into dogs and stuff. And then he finally goes into the arena at this floating barge where it's going to be, and he has to face this giant monster dog, and he fights, and Ace breaks out and finally helps and saves the day, and we get the dog back to the owner, and it's all happy and good. Last episode of the season, I get it. Win for Andy.
I hope somebody told him that.
So I had to look it up because I wasn't even really sure the history of Ace the Bathound. And he was introduced into the comics in 1955, which is, on one hand, is shocking. I can't believe that he's been around that long. I thought that was kind of a newer idea. But at the same time, when you look at comics in that kind of era, there was a lot of that kind of thing going on. You know, Crypto the Super Dog was introduced around that time. I don't remember if it's just before or just after, and we had all kinds of these kind of interesting, kind of sillier characters leading into the 60s when they kind of, the Batman TV show, you could do a whole study on kind of the process of comics and the kind of ebb and flow of these different kind of moods of the comics.
All in the name of profit, Batman.
But I thought it was kind of interesting that Ace, among some other characters, were kind of retired from the comics in 64, when the editor was trying to go a different direction and get away from some of the sillier plot points. And among those characters that he wanted to cut was Batgirl and Batwoman, obviously Batmite and Ace, and those kind of make sense, but I was like, really? They lumped Batgirl and Batwoman into the sillier characters that they wanted to eliminate? It's just like, it's mind-boggling that was the mentality of the writers at that time, to go, oh, nobody's going to take Batgirl seriously. Let's eliminate her and just focus on our demographic, boys.
And I thought he couldn't stoop any lower.
And I thought that was kind of weird. And then we reintroduced Batgirl into the TV show, and editors and writers back in the 60s probably would be shocked to see that we have we have a Batwoman series out there. There's a Batgirl movie in development, like the standalone characters, not just supporting characters, because they found out that there was a huge demographic of girls that also enjoyed comic books and enjoyed these stories, and they want heroes that they can relate to. And sure, there's Wonder Woman and that, but why not have these characters? I was shocked reading that Batgirl and Batwoman were lumped in with Ace the Bathound and Batmite as silly characters.
Things are a whole lot simpler than they used to be, Batman.
Wow, boy, we've come a long way, but we still have quite a long way to go. But I was equally surprised that Ace the Bathound was around that long. And they introduced him to Batman Beyond as just kind of a subtle hint to that as a companion to Bruce, which is nice, kind of filling that Alfred role. Not to that extent. I mean, he doesn't like bring him meals and stuff, make his bed, but that would have been weird.
What did he do to you, boy?
I also, another little production note, is that, the last episode came out in May, and then this episode's out in August 19th, and the third season starts in September. So I thought it was weird that I was like, this episode is actually closer to season 3 than it is season 2. And I don't know why they didn't just make this part of season 3, but I don't know. Whatever. I don't know how they break up these seasons, but I just thought that was interesting. There was such a gap before the last episode of season 2 came out.
What's the matter? The other one not good enough for you?
So, talking about the story and how this episode is set up, I kind of really like it. I'm not a big fan of like dog stories or dog movies or Old Yeller and that kind of thing, but I was kind of okay with this. That the idea of Ace running off and them trying to find him. There were some great emotional moments in this episode with Bruce and his companion and losing his buddy. And I can relate to that. I know what that's like.
Don't worry, boy. I won't ever let anyone hurt you again.
And that's a very relatable topic. And it wasn't just like, oh, this dog randomly ran off and they're trying to find him, but it was built into this other adventure plot of like the dog's origins. Ace having this background in dog fighting and having to try to get out of that and being saved by Bruce to take him into his home, and that sort of rescued dog story is a great element. And then that leading to Terry having to fight these giant mutant dogs. I think all that worked.
Okay, Mutt, if it's a fight you want.
It's one of those stories that I thought a deeper layer to something we've already thought we knew about and already thought we established, that like, oh yeah, here's Ace, here's this dog, he's a companion of Bruce, oh, it's a play on Ace the Bathound, all that's kind of fun. But then this episode comes out of nowhere and kind of peels that back and goes, oh, there's more to this character than what you think. And it even kind of makes sense with how Terry and Ace's relationship has been, where Ace is very protective and very defensive of Bruce and is sort of on guard with Terry, the new person, and all that kind of thing. And you hear this story and you go, oh, it makes sense. I mean, he was bred to be a fighter. And again, that makes sense for why he gets along with Bruce, because they have a lot of similarities of a, kind of an orphaned dog like Bruce is orphaned and having to survive and trying to do what's right and all those kind of similarities. I mean, it's just one of those stories that kind of peeled back this unexpected character in the story to lead to a whole new wealth of more plot points and more stories. And I thought it was a very satisfying episode in that sense.
You're scaring me.
But there is a moment in this episode, which I think is kind of the cornerstone of this episode, is this flashback where we see the origin of Ace, where he came from and his being trained as a dog fighter, or as a dog fight, whatever that means, and how Bruce found him and all that. But it was such a long flashback that involved many scenes that I kind of forgot it was a flashback. And then we see Bruce, and I was like, well, it's winter now. That's interesting. And Bruce is out laying roses where his parents were murdered. And I'm like, wait a minute. So he found Ace? Oh, no. That's when he first found Ace. So it was a good flashback, but it was just so long that I kind of forgot we were in the middle of a flashback.
A long time ago.
But again, I think that was kind of the meat of this story, was that flashback telling the story of Ace. And in that sense, it was satisfying because now we know more about this character that we didn't know before.
Right. Thank you, sir.
But in that flashback, we get to see, again, still an older Bruce, but, presumably a few years ago, walking down the alley and wants nothing to do with this panhandler trying to get money for him. Or maybe it's just he doesn't like clowns. Reasonably so, that he's got a thing for clowns.
Got your Tannenbaum here. How about a little Christmas cred?
It was just kind of a nice little fun added element to that again shows an opportunity to show that Bruce is still very sharp, very in control, very capable to handle himself, where he tells his driver, stay in the car, I can handle it. Okay, sir. And he's an old man walking down the alley, but takes care of himself.
Get out of here.
And it does feel like, without that flashback in there, this would have been a very basic story. That it all kind of leads up to this big fight with the floating dog fight. Get it? Floating barge. I don't know if that was deliberate. But anyway, it all kind of leads to this big fight. And without that flashback, it would have just been like, oh, we're just setting up the story for Batman to go up against this big mutant dog.
Down, boy. I'm not gonna hurt you much.
But I do have to say, it was a great fight, seeing Batman go up against this big dog. And truly, I think this is the most beat up we've seen Terry get. I mean, in the extent of like, his suit gets kind of destroyed and you see all the circuitry underneath and that I thought, wow, this is a brutal fight when you're fighting a giant mutant dog, and for Ace to then come in and help out.
What'd you do with Ronnie?
So yes, it was that climactic scene that I've talked about before of like Terry against a big monster, Batman against a big threat, big villain, big muscle or whatever. But it all worked out and it all made sense within the story, and truly I feel like that was kind of the secondary plot to this story.
After I get through training him, he will.
And in the end, I love the moments where we see Bruce established as a tough, hardcore, no emotion, just has to get the job done kind of character. And certainly at this point as being an older character and has seen a lot of things and just, seen a lot of evil in the world and is sometimes heartless, and he is just vengeance and all that kind of thing. To see these moments at the end where you see him really have a heart and see his attachment for this dog was just a really sweet moment. So when it comes time to rank this episode, I was happy with it. It was not an episode that I would probably seek out to like, oh, that's my all-time favorite episode, just because I'm more of a cat guy than a dog guy. So some of the dog plot stories kind of get lost on me. But again, I can relate to those relationships with dogs because I have those with my cats, Oswald and Marvin and Macy, that I have those kind of relationships as well. So I get it. I would be sad if any of them came up missing. So I can relate in that sense. But I thought it was a good story. I liked, like I said, that they peeled back those layers and told more of a story about Ace and where he came from and his history and all those kind of well thought out elements. So that was good. I appreciate that. So for all those reasons, I have this episode falling at the number 16 spot of my favorite episodes, just below Rebirth, which is kind of ironic because that's the first episode of the first season. This is the last episode of the second season. But I think that this one falls just below that because that one has important information in it as well, and has a story that is more interesting, more engaging, being about the title character versus this one being about kind of a secondary supporting character. But I do have this one beating out Zeta, believe it or not, because Zeta, again, just felt like that was more designed as a spin-off episode and just kind of a throwaway episode for those terms. And this one felt more like an important episode to this series because it dealt with a character that we've seen throughout the entire story. And now we get the satisfaction of getting the backstory and more information about this character. Kind of beats out Zeta in that sense.
He's a very resourceful dog.
So let me know, are you more of a cat person or a dog person? Does this episode connect with you because you're a big dog person? I find that people are typically one or the other. I think there's people that are kind of both, but I think everybody kind of tends to favor one personality over the other versus dog versus cat. And, you know, I find that there's cat people that like dogs, but they like dogs that are more like cats or vice versa, which is, you know, always kind of interesting. So I think people are on one side of the fence or the other, you know, to each his own. But let me know in the comment section below. Are you more of a cat person or a dog person? So here we are at the end of season 2. I'll be back shortly with season 3. So hit that subscribe button so that you will be notified, and click that bell button so that you'll be notified when I come back with those reviews. So it won't be too long, just a short break to get those videos produced, and keep your eye out for some other content that might be along your way. But if you can't wait that long, you can click on some of the reviews, other reviews that I have over here. And as always, thank you so much for watching. I'm Andy Knode. I'll see you soon.